Sorry about that. All right, yeah, I didn't have the recording on. We're talking about energy. We're talking about pharmaceuticals, and I'm talking with Kevin Michaels, and the guy says, I'm Jewish, and I don't run the world. And I said, well, then it doesn't apply to you, does it? You know, I get people coming on and talk. Well, you've got the protocols of the elders of Zion on your side. Don't you know that's a forgery? That's a forgery. No.
Well, you know what? I was looking in the Jewish Encyclopedia, and it even gives the prayer of Kol Nidre, which is if you take an oath once a year at a certain time, you throw off all your convictions and your oath, and you're supposedly free from all of your solemnity, you know, that you bound yourself to. So basically, it's not all lies.
Yeah, Kol Nidre, and what does it matter? You know, my answer is, oh yeah, what is a forgery? What's a forgery? Oh yeah, it's an exact copy of the original.
Well, you know what that brings to mind? I was talking to one guy that recently got out of jail, and I asked him, well, hey, what were you in there for? Well, forgery, stuff like that. I said, well, what do you mean by forgery? He says, well, what I was doing is I was taking $1 bills and bleaching them out, and then I'd print on there like 50 and 100 and whatever he wanted on there, and they got caught doing that.
But a forgery, let's see, whoever wrote the protocols has been dead for about 100 years. So it doesn't really matter who wrote it. What matters is who is using it. I've got 2 films up on my site, folks, and my site is freeamerican.com. You go to my site, freeamerican.com. I've got a couple of films up there about Illumacore. The Illuminati plan for one world government. It's taken right out of the protocols of elders of Zion. They just don't mention Jews. And the Jews have been used, the Jewish people have been used for thousands of years. They've been controlled by the Pharisees. They're the people that Jesus railed against. They talked about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, are of the synagogue of Satan. That's what we're dealing here, folks. If you got a little Jewish grandmother next door to you, she ain't part of it. She ain't part of the problem, and you need to take care of her just as you would, you know, your Christian grandmother. You take care of people the same. You treat people the same. And that's the real problem I got that with the Israelis. I mean, supposedly they escaped from Germany because those Germans treated them so bad. And then they get over to Palestine, and they take over Palestine, and they treat the Palestinians worse than the Germans treated them. I got a problem with that.
Well, at least the Germans had good sense to give them food and everything else and shelter, you know, not just run them over with bulldozers. But anyway, that's another story. Hey, you know, what's been very interesting is tell them about the story that Ford did by placing books in their car. Why don't you run that one on them, too?
Yeah, well, you mean Henry Ford wrote The International Jew? Henry Ford put the protocols of the elders of Zion in every car?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty interesting, but today the company is alive and well. Why didn't they shut him down?
That's right.
But anyway, I wanted to continue on with these a couple letters here I got about this Pogue carburetor. Is kind of interesting. I'm going to read it again since the recording was off the first time.
Go ahead.
This is from T.G. Breen, president of Breen Motor Company Limited, Winnipeg, Canada. To whom it may concern, I made a test today of the Pogue carburetor installed on a Ford 8-cylinder coupe. The speedometer showed that this car had already run over 8,000 miles. I drove the car 26.2 miles on 1 pint of gasoline. The temperature was averaging around 0 with a strong north wind blowing. I drove for some 15 miles and back on the same road, and the distance as shown by the speedometer reading was 26.2 miles when the gasoline was exhausted and the car stopped. The performance of the car was 100% in every way. I tested for acceleration, getaway from a standing start, and at all speeds and performed equal to, if not better than, any car with a standard carburetor. At very low speeds under 10 miles an hour, it was much smoother in operation than a standard car. In fact, below 5 miles an hour, it pulled up a slight grade without laboring of any kind. I stepped on the accelerator when the speedometer was below 5 miles an hour, and the car got up and away without a falter. Okay, now here's another one here. This is from D.F. Smith, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Dear Sir, this is to Ford Motor Company of Canada Limited. Dear Sir, Mr. Purdy and I appreciate very much your interest in arranging tests for us with Mr. Pogue. At the time the test was made, we covered 25.7 miles on 1 pint of gasoline. Before starting the test, the car was run until the motor stalled for want of fuel. The pint of gas was then connected, the main supply tank was turned off, and the test started from a stalled motor. We are at a loss to understand the reason for such marked economy. However, every consideration was shown in carrying out the test and acquainting us with the design of the carburetor. Signed, D.F. Smith. Well, one to go here now. This is from a guy, S. Stockhammer, 347 College Avenue, Winnipeg, Manitoba, August 10th, 1936. To whom it may concern, I have today had the pleasure to make the test of the Pogue carburetor. Same was installed in the Ford V8 Coupe 1934 model. I have taken extra precautions to turn off the speedometer to nil on the trip mileage. I drove the car 28 miles on 1 pint of gasoline. I tested the car for speed up to 75 miles an hour and as low as 3 miles an hour, and the car performed exceptionally nicely. In fact, I can say the performance was as anyone could have desired in every shape or form. Fine, yours truly. So basically, since Ford Motor Company had technology to give us a carburetor, it would give us at least 200 miles, if not more, 224 in most of these cases. Why have they intentionally manufactured stuff that's given us still a Ford 250 that gets 8 to 14 miles a gallon for the last 90 years, 80 years?
Well,
Why?
because we had talked about this off of the air. Henry Ford built the Model A's and Model T's to run on alcohol. And so the farmers were out there with their little stills making the alcohol for their cars and for their tractors. And they made them into criminals. They made them into moonshiners and bootleggers. Oh yeah, they were bootleggers. And after Prohibition, Nelson Rockefeller, Rockefeller, the original Rockefeller, he paid the Women's Temperance League a lot of money to go out and demonstrate against alcohol. So we got Prohibition.
Well, Clay, that brings to mind too when Pogue basically came out with his carburetor in 1936. That's about when they started putting lead in the gasoline to choke up the carburetor and make it not be so efficient. So basically, from about 1936 till about when did they get rid of lead in gas? Around 1985, 86.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Well, what they did is they were doing that just to make sure that none of this kind of technology would work very well, because the lead would clog up the carburetor and make it not be as efficient as it could be. So basically what happened is we got a bunch of companies that came out here and polluted us all with lead in the air for years and years. I can remember when the skies, we'd reach a level 3 smog alert, in the 70s and 80s here,
Right.
But, so basically these people are willing to do just about anything in order to keep the public paying 43% gas tax to the federal government because they're putting alcohol in the gas. And, to keep these guys' money pockets lined so they can, create wars around the planet that are basically useless and just trying to take over countries. What I also see is that every war is created to get rid of a monarchy of sort or a dictator, because when you have a dictator, the country runs only one way, and that's how the guy wants it. When you have elected officers to do things, it's pretty easy to pay off everybody down the line and get what you want. But that brings me to a whole nother thing about what's going on in this country and why it was established. Basically, we had a revolution of tax going up 1% here in 1700s, and yet people are accepting 9 and 10% increases on taxes across the board, and they're done without apportionment. So, but I was kind of trying to look at how we can correct these kinds of problems, and one way is that we just have to study the Constitution here. Now, when every issue that was laid out in the Constitution for the United States of America was for a reason. Basically, all of the kings up until the point of George III, like if somebody got convicted of a crime in Massachusetts, they'd drag him back to England and try him over there with a jury, and if the jury didn't convict him, they'd run him through again and again until finally the juries are all worn out and they just convict a guy just to get out of jury duty or something like that. So basically put in there that several mandates and prohibitions in the Constitution here, which is still the supreme law of the land. And it's like, for example, if any one of you are approached out there by a cop asking you for your driver's license when you're going down the road, ask him if the guy's got a warrant for that information, because you're securing your person, your houses, and your effects, which means anything that you happen to have about you that you own and stuff like that, from unreasonable search and seizure. And a reasonable search or a seizure is one done with a warrant. If the guy doesn't have a warrant, he has no authority over you. He has to run down to City Hall and complain to Daddy down there to go and get a warrant to search you and seize you. So basically a search and a seizure is searching and seizing your papers, which is your driver's license, registration, and insurance. Number two, we're not required to incriminate ourselves or be compelled to incriminate ourselves by giving over documentary evidence that we're in a commercial activity. Commercial activity is defined when we're using vehicles as receiving compensation or profit for driving persons or property for hire down the road. You're not covered under commercial activity, even though you may have a driver's license, registration, and insurance. Just going down to the market, going down to church or anywhere else you might want to go visit your grandma down on the East Coast, the driver's license and those effects don't cover you then. But if you don't know that you can simply displace the Constitution as your remedy there, most people are simply too happy to hand over their papers and get written up a ticket, and you're actually waiving your rights when you hand them your papers there, and you're giving them evidence of your commercial activity.
I got pulled over in Louisiana on my way to Florida, and cop wanted to search my vehicle, and I said no. So they went out and got 15 other cops and surrounded me, and they brought the dogs over, and said, well, now we're going to run these dogs around the truck, and if they alert us that you've got marijuana in there, then we can search your truck. Fine. Do you mind if my wife takes my dog for a walk so my Siberian Husky doesn't eat your dog? And
what?
And he said no, that's fine. And so my wife walked the dogs, and his dogs came up, went around the truck, and dogs didn't alert him. I didn't have anything in the truck, and they let me go without searching my truck.
Well, I probably wouldn't have let my dog go on a walk just to keep the antagonism level high. With the dogs and stuff. But that's the thing. You got to stand up for it, and they'll try to push you as far as they think they can go with you. And if you acquiesce, then that's your tough luck. Same thing goes. Like if they pull you over and they ask you what's your name, well, you have a right to not incriminate yourself, so you have to just tell them, well, you got a search warrant, because still that's property, and that's not your house, that's not your person, that's an effect, we would call it, but to search, do discovery on it, would require a warrant, because again, we have the right. This country is founded on the right of privacy, not of openness. Openness only happens to cover what government servants are supposed to be doing, and us being able to go down there and audit these guys. So, if we look at every single constitution for each of the states here, they all start out with basically the same thing right up front, and in the Bill of Rights, and I bet you most people don't even know how a constitution starts out with the first article, first section. I'm going to lay it on you right here. For example, I'm going to read from the Michigan Constitution, 1963. I'm going to read from the Declaration of Rights, Section 1, Political Power. All political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal benefit, security, and protection. So basically, we didn't set up government to steal our property, tell us what to do, try to search for our names and everything else. In fact, as far as the Articles 1 and the Declaration of Rights concerned, since we instituted government for our equal protection, security, and benefit, what are they doing out here trying to extort money from you, have you pay a ransom to get you out of jail or your car out of impound or something like this, when all the political power is inherent is in the people, it's not in the government servants. We've got a big problem with this issue here.
Okay, by the way, folks, on the blog TV here, the guy that Planet kicked out, the VOVIDOLIDATION, is coming on the private chat and saying, see, your channel is controlled. Yeah, but I don't have to talk to you, jerk. So, all right. We just go, people don't like us telling the truth here and speaking the truth. This ain't time. We ain't putting down anybody because they're Jewish. We ain't talking about anything except criminals that are ripping off the American people. They're ripping us off with the gasoline. They're ripping us off. And Archer Daniels Midland took over all the ethanol production, and they work the government.
Yeah, well, I got an ethanol still working myself, so go and tell them to go to hell, They're not the only ones doing it. But see, the problem that we got with ethanol is that we're using topsoil to make this funny gas here that's really not very good for your car. And if you figure that if each of these farmers, instead of burning it up, making mash out of it, was to compost that and build up the land rather than just use these chemical fertilizers. The land would be getting built up instead of depleted, and that's just going to lead to more erosion and soil loss and stuff like that. For what? When we can go down and we got how many gallons of water you think we got down there in the Atlantic Ocean? I mean, there's so much water. You can go down there, get 5 gallons of water, and run it through a pure water filter, and you can put that in your Toyota EC3, which would make would split the water into hydrogen, and you could probably go. The estimation is about on 1 gallon of gas, you can go. I mean, 1 gallon of water, you can go 1,000 miles. So. If you don't have water too close, I mean, 1,000 miles will get you almost halfway across the country. So you only need 5 gallons of gas to make it, of water to get across the whole darn continental United States.
If our ships were just ran a hose over, they were using the whole GEAT type of device, you extracting the hydrogen, which isn't hard to do. It's not difficult. It's not expensive. It's not as expensive as solar. And that's what the Japanese did, and that may be why that earthquake was going on. They had a car that would run on water, and they were going into mass production.
Well, a very interesting thing about running the car on hydrogen is that you don't get any emissions or oxides out of the tailpipe like you do with carbon monoxide. You don't have any noxious oxides, nitrous oxides, or anything else that where we get acid rain or anything, and basically you're just getting nothing more than steam out of there, and just not even 10,000ths of a particle of carbon burning. But we do have oil in them, so there will be just a little tiny amount, but nothing like burning gasoline. So basically what we need to do is we need to be concentrating about decentralizing power structures and getting communities into this. But what's really going on here is that they're trying to say that they want green energy, but they won't give us a car that'll run 200 miles on a gallon of gas here yet. I mean, it's just like ridiculous.
Well, I came to the same conclusion. I came to the same conclusion, and I started something in the centerfold of my Free American magazine that called Liberty Villages. And my whole plan with Liberty Villages, now the problem with green energy, and I want your input on this, Kevin. The problem with Obama wants green energy, promised us green energy, so he wants to sell the top of that mountain over there to a foreign corporation and let them come in and put their windmills made in Canada up on that mountaintop. They'll pump the energy back down that it produces back down to the company for distribution, and so there's all kinds of profit built into there all the way down the line. And you end up paying the same or more for the green energy than you paid for the coal-fired plants.
Yeah, and the whole thing is these coal-fired plants and the whole coal industry. Why should we wipe out whole mountaintops and ranges of forest for coal and digging up the ground when we don't need it? There's so much water on the planet, and guess what? You can take a car engine and put an alternator on there that's very efficient, and you can run about 750 homes on one of those things. Do you think we actually need the grid if we got this water technology? No, we don't.
And now, what if that
puts all these solar energy things and wind farms to shame because we don't need them. They just take up things and they ruin birds from flying around, and all kinds of other things. Ugly windmills. Who wants it?
Now, the other thing is, if my plan for Liberty Villages is if you grow your own food, non-genetically modified, you raise your own animals, unchipped chickens, and you're powering your home with a windmill and with a solar panels around the top of the and you could live in a teepee, you could live in a yurt, you could build a little cabin, you could build a little adobe home, you know, and if you're working with other people to manage the farm, manage the food. I mean, you can't do everything. You know, I'm not a good farmer, but you know, I know computers. And okay, can we hang on just a minute and let me take a caller here?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, since I know who this caller is, and he must have some, since I've been doing a radio show on Truth Radio for about 20 years. Welcome, Richard Palmquist.
You do that to me.
I would do that. I would do that to you.
I have a strictly personal bit of news for you, and you put me out there with all of your listeners.
Yes, sir.
I have our audience support Clay Douglas. He knows what he's doing, and he does it well, and deserves your support. There.
Thank you. That's a good segue for me telling them to send money. You can send me money by PayPal, clay@freeamerican.com. Make a donation. But what's up, Richard? And say hello to Kevin Michaels. He's my guest today.
Hi, Kevin. What I have to tell Clay, you would not be interested in hearing, and neither would anybody. Neither would anybody else. Well, Clay, give me a call back when you're free.
All right. Well, listen. Thanks for.
I'll give you something that you'll be laughing about all day long. It's good news.
Now,
It's nobody's business though, but yours and mine.
Okay, all right, Richard. We wouldn't want to do anything, insensitive here. All right, sir.
You'll be quite displeased with me if I went ahead and dropped it.
All right, we will.
Okay.
I'll call you after the show, Richard. Thanks.
Have a great day.
Okay, that was Richard Palmquist with Truth Radio. So, anyway, go ahead, Kevin. Where were we?
Oh yeah, we were just talking about the hubbub with why we don't really need wind farms, why we don't need coal, why we don't need gasoline, we don't need natural gas either. I mean, it's all these technologies have been around here for years and years and years with this hydrogen splitting technology. All it is just putting a steel plate in some water. And, putting a negative charge and a positive charge in the water at milliamp charges and letting the hydrogen bubble out of there and then capturing it somehow and run it into your intake. But that's literally all it is, and trying to get a nice square wave so that it produces hydrogen very efficiently.
If the ships were running on hydrogen, then they'd just throw a hose over there, and it wouldn't cost us thousands of dollars to ship Chinese goods over here.
Well, the whole thing is we don't need Chinese goods anyway. They didn't, China was back in the Stone Age until we gave them technology how to temper metal, because I remember, I bought a cheap Chinese tool set for about $2 or $3 one time, and, first time I put it on something that needed a little unloosening, and the damn thing broke on me, and then I just had to go back to my old Snap-on, and, that thing, you can run that thing over the truck and it'll still work,
Okay, let me share something. I got a little side chat over here. I got a little side chat by somebody who is Jewish. He says Ashkenazi isn't separate individuals. It's the only mind. You can't win this mind. It's smarter than the smartest computer on earth. You just don't understand. And what I said is, you don't understand that there is a group mind out here, but it's opposed to your bullshit. It's called good versus evil. He says God speaks through Jewish people. We are God. Jewish people are God. They have all his wisdom, and you have none, you stupid pagan. I said, you are the synagogue. Wait a minute, let me finish this. You are the synagogue of Satan, your father. That's your God. And he says God equals the Jewish people. You are nothing, just individuals with no special abilities. I said Jesus had your number. Take your false god and stuff it. He says Jesus was Satan. Satan sent him to fight God's people. He was a thug.